Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning. If you're here for the first time or from out of town, I give you a special welcome, and I invite you to join us during community time, or there's a discussion group afterwards. I recently experienced my 25th anniversary as a minister, and I began to see how things have changed since I've been here. Some people have, I'm not talking about the people here, but people that come in on a daily basis, they seem to be getting a little bit more vociferous in their criticisms and complaints. And when I came here 25 years ago, I was 40 years old, and one of the things that I realized was that when we set the volume on the stereo to play music through the church, the perfect volume was my age. I set the volume at 40. Well, now all of a sudden, somebody thinks it's too loud. I'm still setting it at my age, but they're complaining all of a sudden. Well, this morning we're going to talk about spirituality versus religion. And I find it interesting that religion has its place, and it is much, much older than spirituality, but when you look at somebody like Jesus, he wasn't a religious person. He didn't engage in a religion. He was very spiritual. And when I say spiritual, I mean he went inside to that spiritual dimension within himself, discovered all sorts of spiritual powers and insights and perceptions that helped him to live a life that was much more filled with love, peace, and harmony. Same thing with Buddhist. Buddhist wasn't a religious person, but he is a very spiritual person. So the difference between religion and spirituality can be compared to, say, a cookbook. Religion is like a cookbook. All sorts of directions on how to do all sorts of things. And there's many different kinds of cookbooks, as there are many different kinds of religion. There's Italian cookbooks and Irish cookbooks and Chinese cookbooks and German cookbooks. There's sugar-free cookbooks and salt-free cookbooks, and what's that latest thing that's going on with wheat? You can't have gluten-free cookbooks. So you got all sorts of different religions, you got all sorts of different cookbooks, each one telling you how to do something a little bit differently. So then you have the religious people or the religious leaders, and in the cookbook metaphor, once again, they say, well, you have to have a cup of sugar. And then somebody else says, no, 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 no. You need 2 half cups of sugar. And then somebody says, that's foolish. You need 4 quarter cups of sugar. And then somebody else says, no, you need 2 quarter cups and 1 half cup of sugar. All religion does is try to provide a path for us to have a closer connection with God, a closer relationship with God. But they all think they have the way to do it. So where religion is a cookbook, spirituality is actually the cooking and the consuming of the food. It is the chopping, it is the cooking, it is the consuming of the food. And you don't necessarily need a cookbook to do that, but a cookbook can help. Spirituality is moving into that spiritual dimension within ourselves that Jesus discovered and that Buddhists discovered and that Gandhi discovered and all the other great leaders that religion was based on. But what went awry is religion took it and they began to organize it and they began to build a hierarchy and they began to put in middle people or middle men primarily to be the go-between between the person and God, so that spirituality couldn't be directly experienced. It had to be done through somebody else, and that's what leveled it out. About 10 years ago, 50% of all the people in this country were involved in some sort of church or some sort of religious experience. 50%. That's about half. But that has been growing tremendously as of late because the focus has switched from religion to spirituality, and people realize that through spirituality, it doesn't have to be religious. They don't have to engage in the dogma. They don't have to believe in the myths. They don't have to go along with all the dictates and the do's and don'ts that religious puts forth. It is simply directing us to that inner realm, discovering the essence of our being, discovering that we have powers within where we can manage almost anything that takes place in our lives. And as I've said before, oftentimes And through spirituality, there is never a time when you cannot stand on the ground you're standing on and say, I am happy to be alive, I'm happy to be me, I'm happy to be here now, no matter what else is happening. Because there's spiritual principles that we can employ to rise above, move beyond, or overcome anything that tries to diminish our peace of mind and our sense of well-being. That's what spirituality does. It's a journey, it's a path, it's something that moves us forward on the evolutionary path. So this morning I've asked some people to come forward and share with us which spiritual principle has had the most beneficial effect in their lives. And I'd like them to come forward now, please. You. Nice haircut, Winnie. Thanks. So tell me, Ed, we're going to start with you. And you and I have known each other for quite some time, and you've been a very active participant in Unity. Tell us what your...
Hello.
Tell us what spiritual principle has had the biggest effect on your life?
Well, you posed the question early in the week, so I decided to do something I've learned to do here, and that is to sit with it. And that has not always been a natural thing for me, to sit with things. I typically like to have an answer, and the sooner the better. And I will tell you what came up for me is something that I learned. One of my spiritual mentors is Dee Suddarth, who has been away and has returned. So thank you, Dee, for being a mentor, as well as you. I don't want you to feel left out.
Yeah.
You had that look like, what? So you can have more than one spiritual mentor. That's a good takeaway. But here is, and I don't have my reader versions on, so I'm going to have to do this. This is a verse that says it, really expresses it for me. 1 Corinthians 13:13. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And I will tell you, when I arrived here, I really wasn't moving away from anything, but I was definitely looking for something. And this place really taught me how to go within, to not look outward for the answers, but to learn how to be in tune with my source, which was within. And definitely faith was important on that path, because I had left a career that I was supposed to want and I didn't like, and I really was kind of out there floating without an understanding of where I was supposed to move toward. So faith was something that I found in this community because of the love and the people that believed in me, while I learned to believe in myself again. Hope was certainly important, because there are times, as you all know, when you need to know that the answers do come, even when the answers aren't apparent. But most importantly for me, and continues to be love. And to me, if it's important enough to put in the stained glass window over the sanctuary, it's an important principle. But I think that love is one of those things. If in the absence of love, a lot of things happen that aren't necessary. I mean, you look around us. If there is love in any situation, things usually work out for the best. Or I will say things do work out for the best. Or the absence of love can very often lead, unfortunately, to things that are not in the best interest of those involved. So with that said, love can be certainly love of others, but I think the thing I want to finish with is it's also important to learn how to love yourself and to honor yourself. And learning to do that actually is something I came to understand as a part of this community. I've been here for, I guess, 13 years now as a part of this community. And what I mean by that is you are fine right where you are. You have everything you need. You don't need to be any different than who you are. And it's taken me many years, and it's an ongoing process to embrace that. But to answer your question in one word, all the way back when you asked me that question, to me the most important spiritual principle in my life is love.
And Ed, let me ask you, what is your definition of love?
Love is patient. Love is kind. No, I tend.
Is that original to you?
Pardon?
Is that original to you?
Well, I read it in a book, But I think love is about being open, being accepting of yourself and others.
Thank you.
That's a philosophical question, and I think you know that. Okay.
There's so many things, it's hard to pick one, but I would love to talk just a few moments about the power of the story of Myrtle Fillmore. When I came in here in 1991, I didn't think I needed anything. In fact, I just thought I needed more doing. Doing was what I thought life was all about. And the more I did, the less happy I was. And so there was a huge disconnect in what I was trying to experience and what was actually showing up in my life. And so I had never heard the story of Myrtle Fillmore until that time when I came here to Unity Temple. And to hear the story of a woman who was in her late 30s and had been told that she was sickly her whole life, and that had the strength and the faith to decide that she would sit in the silence for 2 years and do something that's now part of the spiritual practices of Unity, which is called affirmations and denial. And I really like to think of those two practices of getting very clear about what I want more of in my life and being very clear about what I want less of in my life. And so the only way I've been able to discern with more clarity what those items are is to sit in the silence. And I always feel so inspired by Myrtle Fillmore. Many of you know we do meditations in the Myrtle Fillmore Chapel, and there's a little sculpture of her, there's a little picture over the altar. And I always feel like Myrtle is watching down over us as we meditate and smiling, that she started this whole idea and this whole Unity movement along with her husband Charles, but that sitting in the silence was a spiritual principle that enabled me to have greater clarity over what I wanted more of in my life and what I wanted less of, and then going about being able to make that happen. And so my spiritual principle is Myrtle Fillmore's inspiration of sitting in the silence and affirmations and denials.
And Janet, tell me, what possible benefit can come from just sitting and doing nothing?
Well, I did come across a really fascinating research program that had been done just recently. Some of you may have seen it. And they put college students in a room and took their phones away from them and gave them nothing to do. And so they did this for several hundred students. They were literally put in the room, no stimulation whatsoever, just sit there and do nothing. And they did give them one option of something they could do, and that was to push a button that would actually give them electrical shock. And 70% of the men in the study chose an electrical shock over sitting and doing nothing.
Why do you find it's important to mention that fact?
Well, 30% of the women did as well. So I found it interesting that in our culture, it is very difficult to sit and do nothing. But we always describe it as like a snow globe, where we're constantly shaking the snow globe and everything seems very muddled and unclear, and it's easy for me to feel unsure about what it is I'm supposed to be doing. And when I sit and do nothing, the snow globe settles down, and that sense of clarity that arises naturally from doing nothing.
Very good. And is there anything else you'd like to say about me?
Well, as Ed said, you can have more than one spiritual mentor. But I will say that I would love to tell two stories on Duke. And one is, I I went into his office in 1999, and I was super excited about a book I had read recently by Karen Armstrong called The History of God. And I was just so engaged and inspired by it. And at that point, Duke said, "You should get up on Sunday morning and talk about that." And I realized, never tell Duke you're excited about something. It can really backfire on you.
Thank you.
But the other thing that I'd love to tell about Duke is that when I did start to show up here on a regular basis, and I felt a yearning in my heart, and I wasn't quite sure what to do, I would say that he has shown me, he saw something in myself before I was even able to see it. And so to encourage me to go deeper into my spiritual path, and I will be forever grateful for you changing my life.
Thanks.
When Duke asked me to speak on this, I too have been thinking about it all week. What single spiritual principle has meant the most to me? And ever since I was a child, I have sensed the presence of God, and that has been foremost in my life and then not so foremost in my life, depending on what periods I've been evolving through. But where I am today, I would have to say that being receptive to the present moment is absolutely the practice that puts me in touch, because I know that God is only found here in the present moment. I can only receive the gifts of the Spirit in the present moment. When I first was exposed to this idea, there was a great awakening in me, and it was through Ram Dass's book, Be Here Now. I could get it up here, but I couldn't get it anywhere else in my being. So I would literally sit in a chair and go, I'm here now, I'm here now, I'm here now, trying to pinpoint the present moment. Now it's much more global than that. I am not aware of what I'm thinking and feeling at every single given moment, but my energy is oriented to being here now. And it's, as Duke has shared this morning and often shared, you know, I'm happy to be alive, I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to be me. So this present moment orientation opens me to receive the gifts. I believe that the mission statement of Jesus was, I have come that your joy may be complete, that you can have life and have it more abundantly. So I've been going through my life like a little Pac-Man, just eating up experiences. And now I'm in a digestion stage. I'm just savoring what all is put before me in this present moment. When my mind is focused on the past, or when I'm living out of a desire for a future that's yet to manifest, I am not present to the gifts. I'm not present to the people, to the experiences, to the diversity, to the richness. And it is in that experience that I'm truly fed and that I'm connected to my reality, connected to the people and the events of my life. So for me, it's just coming back to the present moment, loving what is, and being grateful, practicing gratitude, top for me.
Donna, let me ask you, in the present moment, what do you do with if it's excruciatingly painful?
I breathe and I practice non-resistance. Excruciatingly painful passes. It passes. And knowing that this too shall pass allows me to just experience it and to realize that in the core of me, the essence of me is the divine presence, and it can never be harmed, it can never be diminished. So I retreat to this place where I become the observer of it. I don't resist it, or I try not to resist it, and just to experience it. What we resist persists, and what I push against pushes back with equal force. So I actually keep that pain in place by not being willing to experience it. But in recognizing it and accepting what is, I experience it, it passes through, and I can return to my point of peace more quickly.
Thank you. We have heard some very wise things here this morning. If you want to recap this, you can go to our website, and it will be on there probably tomorrow at this time. But now let's give all three of them a round of applause. And now, as we prepare for meditation, I invite you to make yourself comfortable in your seats. Just take a deep breath, slowly exhale, and as you do, feel your body becoming relaxed, your mind becoming peaceful, and your heart overflowing with love. Take this moment to rest easy. If you're dealing with any problems or challenges at this point, embrace them. Know that they are part of your life, and that this time too shall pass. Know that you have a spirit within you, a power within you that can heal. The healing comes from energy, and the energy comes from positive thought. And in this moment, right here, right now, all is well. The past is gone, the future is yet to be seen, but right now, in this moment, all is well. as I speak these words, please make them your own and say them back to yourself. Peaceful mind. I am at peace with all the situations and circumstances in my life. Peaceful heart. I'm at peace with all the people in my world. And peaceful spirit. I'm at peace with the person who I am in the life that I am living. And so it is.
Something within me that holdeth the reins, something within me that banishes pain, something within me I cannot explain. All that I know, there is something, there is something, there is something